Pros vs. Joes at Home Edition is sponsored by Gigamon. Gigamon Threat Insight accelerates network detection and response by providing continual monitoring and analysis of your network. Utilizing high-fidelity threat detection and recommended next steps, Gigamon Threat Insight offers investigation and response teams a way to operationalize the critical data necessary to defeat active threats in the environment. Visit gigamon.com for more information.
And we are live and back with our next talk. Welcome back to the Pros versus Joes at Home Edition. We have got another talk by one of my local guys here. Runs one of the DEF CON groups really close to me. I run DEF CON 610 out here in Easton, Pennsylvania. And this man runs DEF CON 201 in Dirty Jersey. Everybody, welcome Mr. SidePocket.
Hello, everyone out there on the interwebs. Assuming you can hear me okay.
Yeah,
so
all good,
what you
man.
should be seeing right now is our website. I'm going to give a bit of an intro to ourselves. This is going to be kind of different what you're seeing because I don't have slides, but what I do have is a proof of work here. So a little bit of expanded background of who I am. I'm known on the interwebs and throughout the security and hacker community as SidePocket. I'm one of the co-founders of DEF CON 201, Dirty Jersey Represent. DEF CON 201 is located in Hudson, New Jersey, specifically Jersey City, where we normally meet third Friday of the month at an awesome sandwich shop called Subculture, which has Raspberry Pi video games and a huge screen to present. But because of COVID, we've been all unfortunately sacked at home. So I'll be drinking water a lot. So we've been virtualizing all of our meetups lately. If you go to our website, you can find links to on our news section, the different live streams we're going to do. In fact, I'm going to make a couple of announcements because we're going to be doing some live streaming tonight, but that's besides the point. The talk that I wanted to get into today is that is basically how to configure a default Firefox browser to make it do Recon and some other scrupulous stuff for you. So if you're playing CTF or war games or any of that sort of like you want to do Recon on a website or you're doing some testing, this is the way you can configure your browser. Now, a bit of background about myself and DEF CON 201 of how this concept came about. DEF CON 201 is part of the Electronic Frontier Alliance. That's a subgroup of the EFF, or the Electronic Frontier Foundation. They normally do a lot of activism and legal battles of privacy and security for everyone's digital rights on the internet globally. And I've been working with them a lot to do this talk that I've done multiple times at our group and other organizations about how to take if you want to surf the web privately and securely, what browsers to avoid, what browser to pick, and it's Firefox, and then how to configure that browser in order to make it the most private and secure you could possibly make it. It's not foolproof because that doesn't exist in the security world, but the most secure and private you can make it. So that way you can surf the internet anonymously and securely in response to whatever threat model that you have, all the way from the really basic stuff to just like, I'm in the middle of a war zone and all the government agencies on me, please help me. So I was doing this for a while and I have multiple configurations for different levels of security. And then about 2 months ago, I began to think, I've been so focused on trying to configure a browser to do defensive stuff and to avoid trackers and fingerprinting and all this such. What if I could take Firefox and make it do the reverse? What if I could, with an already default minimum amount of privacy and security so you can safely explore this and cover your tracks, what extensions could I add? What could I do in the About Config section of Firefox to make it so that I can pull data off of websites, read the code, look for possible exploits, network flaws, etc., within the limit of the browser, not using any external programs that you'd find on Kali, purely in the browser, as just a cool tool to use. Because in my experience, I've been doing CTS, I'm very new to this, CTS for a while, and most of the flags I normally get, thanks to this browser configuration I've been testing, has to do when they do web security, where they throw up poorly made website by design, or they want to have you try to go through a login portal or such as that. And I've been testing this browser out, and it's been working really well for me. So I kind of want to show you the configurations that I've done to it. Now, before I get into the About Config section, I want to note that I did put all the base extensions that you would do to try to fortify your browser. So the basic extensions, if you're unaware, because this is designed for beginners up, is uBlock. I put in uBlock origin just as a given, just to make sure if there's no trackers. This might be optional for a particular extension that I'm going to show in a bit that's specifically designed for Recon and protection and red teaming, but I'll get to that in a moment. You should also have HTTPS everywhere, which is done by the EFF organization. That you can, when it's blue, that means it's working. When it's red, you can force all the traffic to be HTTPS only. This sort of allows you to figure out who's actually certified all of their HTTPS and not, because I'm not going to do it here right now, but if you go to a website that's not HTTPS supported, it will actually block you from going there and ask if you want to proceed. So that's a little bit of recon right there without even trying. I also recommend, like on here, decentralize, which blocks content for network delivery. It basically sees sort of, let's see if I can bring it up here, like who's, let me find it here because it's a bit of a mess. Who's tracking you and what on any given website in terms of injection scripts there. And that's sort of the base stuff that I like to include right there. Sorry. Another good one is the no script, which can block all JavaScript entirely. Globally enabled JavaScript, or you can select which websites that you're currently on will have JavaScript at what sort of security levels. Turning off JavaScript kind of lets you know, again, not only if the website's using JavaScript, but how much JavaScript is being used in order to do the functions of the website. Essentially, you can break a lot of websites by turning off JavaScript. So now that we have those base guys out of the way, let's get into some more details here. So I'm going to show you the long way to do this section, and then I will then show you the quick way, but I still recommend doing the long way. This is normally done for WebRTC, but what a lot of people don't know about Firefox is that unlike Chrome, you have a lot of customization. I'm just typing this in, and if I make any errors here, I'm just a little nervous. Ah, boy. There's supposed to be an end in there. There we go. That's the way my day's been going. You usually get this warning screen, which you can normally opt out of. I like to keep it on to remind me that I'm on there and I don't accidentally make a config mistake. And this will show, normally, it's not right now because of the security level, but it will show you all of the configurations that you can look up here. So, for example, in order to turn off WebRTC, which is a type of protocol that's used normally for a lot of live streaming services, and what it will normally do if you have a VPN is accidentally leak out your ISP data in order to be tracked. But I'm just going to use this as an example. If this will work, hopefully, is that you copy and paste from privacytools.io, which has an entire mega list of security where this would be. It's currently enabled on true. If we double click it, it will turn to false, and that's what you want to be on. And basically, you can do all sorts of configuration from there. Now, privacytools.io has, like I said, an entire list of these, and I recommend that on this browser setting, and it's down here under the Firefox privacy related, to do all of these individually. But because what if you're out in the field and you need to change something, there's an actual extension called privacy settings that will allow you to do this manually on the fly, and also set it to different privacy levels that are enhanced in different privacy levels depending on what you need for what you're going to do with your browser. And we're going to get into the juicy bits in a moment. I do want to point out also that, again, part of the philosophy design around this browser is I wanted this to work like the dashboard of your car, where when you're driving a car, you don't have time to look at like a notice on your vehicle about if the engine went out or which spark plug went up. You just need to know the base information in your periphery as soon as possible, immediately, so that way you can focus on the road. So I designed a lot of this sort of function around it. And so as much as it seems like it might be useless, there's an extension called Snowflake made by the Tor people then normally what it does is it does a browser pass-through relay on the Tor node. So in browser, you can basically use your browsing computational power as a Tor node. Now, the reason why I have this on this sort of assault browser, as we call it, is because sometimes you kind of get confused with so many options of if your WebRTC is on or not off. And for my personal preference, having Snowflake, the extension in the browser, if I see that the Snowflake is purple and glowing and enabled, and I don't want WebRTC on, that tells me that it's on without having me to check directly into the About config. So if I know that, I can go in the About config, change the setting, restart the browser, and then when it's grayed out and you can't click the enable button, that means it's off. So I still keep that on there, not for the Tor relay node, but as a visual, simple visual indicator that if WebRTC is on or off, because that becomes a big issue, especially if you're going to be using VPNs and challenges. So what's particular to this browser that I've added that we'll be able to do some fun stuff on, let's say, a web CTF challenge? Well, for total access control, I've put in uMatrix. uMatrix is basically a kind of a way more complicated version of, let me go back to our website. Oh, that's our test page there. Hang on. Come on. Disappear. Status bar. Come on. Go away. Go away. This is how you can tell this is live. There we go. uMatrix here, which is sort of like a very intense version of uBlock, where you can look at what sort of, if there's tracking, implementing in images, what sort of outsourced media loading, the amount of scripts that you have, XHR, frame data, other things that it doesn't know. And I will warn that uMatrix a lot of times will end up breaking your website. So sometimes if you're like in a CTF and let's say you can't log into the CTF or the website's not working, you might want to temporarily disable uMatrix and then reload the page and see if that works, which again will tell you sort of, oh, they're using a lot of complicated scripts and outside elements. And this sort of gives you just all the options that you could in order to just blatantly see at a glance, okay, what's this sort of website's loading. Now, if you want a more detailed description of that, there's an awesome extension called Build With. So let's go to a fun website. Let's go to the New York Times, for example, which is you load New York Times and Chrome together, you're guaranteed to crash most computers. That's how much scripting and media intense heavy New York Times is. And so we can also have a lot of fun researching it and breaking it. So using the Built With, all I have to simply do is click on it in my tab. And what Built With will do is it will scan the internet resources and we'll figure out exactly all of the information data that that website is built with. So as you can see here, New York Times uses so many different things for analytical tracking, Facebook domains, Fastify, Google Analytics, as a Twitter Universal tag here, so many Google extensions in here, just so much stuff. Yahoo, it's literally kind of plugged into everything. Like this, New York Times in particular literally goes on forever with the stuff, these sort of analytical trackings, as well as just all the sort of utilities that it's built with. Did I just see Ubuntu there? Yeah, we can see all the data here. It's using Red Hat Enterprise Linux here, ThinkBox, Amazon Cloud Hosting, as well as two versions, Amazon Cloud Hosting and the local hosting here. Let's see, it's backend's coded in Python, many different versions of Python. It's using Ubuntu as its main operating server and Apache as its web server. This is just without doing major hacks or like opening up Jack the Ripper or some sort of external program will just give you all sorts of data on your website target. And that's just only one extension on here. Now, let's say we're targeting a website that maybe we might be able to find more data that was on a previous version of the website that they removed over time as they've updated for security reasons or just due to the updated pipeline. Or what if we want to see if an older version of a website has a vulnerability in it? Normally, I'd recommend to go to the Internet Archive and to use the Wayback Machine. But thankfully, and we're going to be going through a lot of extensions, there is an extension directly for the Wayback Machine. You can view the recent version, the first version, which I'm actually going to try to load up here. You can look it up on Alexa and Whois right off the bat, social media, the site out, save the current page, and just do a general search in the Wayback Machine. So back when New York Times began, this is all it is. This would have filled up an entire screen here. And this is just, again, a great resource that if you want to try to find vulnerabilities in an older version of the website, kind of look at the, let's see if I can bring it up properly here, because this has its own section here, view page source. If we want to see that sort of older version of the website or sort of the info that it's on, you can do that directly through Internet Archive, and having the extension here very much helps with that. So let's go back to New York Times. Let's see what other stuff we can do here. Sorry, again, this is how you know this is live. Trying to think of more Recon. I both have the extension here and the right click. There's a lot of stuff you can also add that when you right click just opens up more options here. There's a really awesome resource that is simply called Scan This URL. And once we click that, it will do all sorts of fun stuff with the URL, such as list the individual files, do reverse IP lookup. Let's see, let's go to reverse DNS lookup, and we have all the data for the DNS over here. A list of all the New York Times subdomains, the geo IP location, all the historical timestamps for the IP address right here, temporary screenshots that go through various history. We can look through its various web cache data, as well as look up through other third-party versions, such as maybe like McAfee Web Advisor, of all the stuff it can find, like its website status and its category, and all sorts of things. So this sort of, and this is an extension you can find, all these extensions you can find right in the Firefox store. It's a great resource. Wow, I'm actually running low on water. I also hope, I apologize if I'm also going really fast for you guys, but we have a lot of ground to cover in a very short time. I'm actually shocked at how long this is going on for, but let's go back to our friend, the New York Times. I'm actually going to kill out the preferences here. There we go. So another right-click thing here. Let's see what we can do. Because I know I have one more thing here. Well, you can also do Wayback Machine. Yes, both as an extension at the top here as well as in the right-click. We can immediately search on Shodan. Everyone's favorite web. Oh, it actually came back as an error. Oh yeah, because I haven't been logged in yet. But you can instantly search on Shodan. Instead of going to the website and trying to remember what the host name is and copy pasting and doing all of that, you can click right to Shodan from this type of browser setup. And then a really fun thing that I love, and let's try to find a static image. Here's a perfect one. When we right click on images, we can do two things. First of all, there's a great extension I've added in here called the Exit Viewer, which allows you to view the data here for stenography research here. So you can see it's handling. I think because it's basic, it's not clicking in for the other list here. Let's see, all table. But yeah, this will allow you to do stenography recon on images. And another fun extension is Sputnik, where now we have a whole, remember that website lookup? Sputnik is even more extensive because we can use now multiple third-party extensions, including Shodan, to kind of look up all sorts of data that we want. Let's click one here. Let's see. Let's click on Hacker Target. And so now it's going to load that website in Hacker Target. So it found new DSN records for some reason for that section of the website. But again, this is a great resource to have. Now, let's see. So now that we can sort of gather the sort of URL and metadata from this, let's see, what can we do to manipulate the exact website stuff? Oh, I'm sorry. Before I go on, let me go to two more quick extensions. I have to go to another website for that. Here are two other useful extensions on here that are immediately on the dashboard we can do. And for this, we're going to go to GitHub. Now bought out by Microsoft. You notice that icon changed. Many different developer websites have a little text file that they put in that's called the permission to hack text file. And GitHub has one. When we click on it, if you find any bug bounties or any sort of errors, this gives you not only the permission to find them for that website so you know if you're doing ethical hacking or not, but also the contact information and acknowledgement information you have to do, as well as their sort of bounty policies and other information you need in order to do this sort of, like if you're collecting errors on website. Another important one, and I think GitHub will work on this, is there's an extension called the Robot TXT Viewer. Well, many websites, especially commercial websites, have a robots.txt file, which basically tells bots what it can look at and what it can't look at. And when we open it, we can see all the data for the sort of crawling agencies it will allow and not allow. And I think New York Times is even bigger. Yeah, New York Times even has a more extensive list of what bots can and cannot do. So that's also really good data that you can recon off of that. So now that we have that out of the way, let's see stuff you can manipulate directly into the website. Well, first of all, we can try to view the website and see if anything changes by changing our user agent. For those that don't know, the user agent is essentially what a website server sees in browser, and it will let it know what sort of operating system you're running on, as well as the type of browser that you're using. There's a really good extension called Chameleon that will allow you to change this sort of thing. So right now we're on random profile. We can also check the profile directly and also have a list here, so it's going to change. I have it set to every 30 minutes, but you can also just manually change it to the different types of profiles that you want, so different versions of Windows 8, Mac OS, Linux, iOS, Android. The Chameleon also has a ton of other security features as well, such as the do not track, e-tag function. Let's see here. Different things on injections, like you can do a delay on the keyboard to protect keyboard fingerprinting, manipulation of data, first-party isolation. You can also disable WebRTC from here directly, spoof clients, screen size, time zones, all different stuff that you can test sort of how the server is going to react to different changes within that browser type. Now that's all fun and good, but let's see if we can do some more direct manipulation here, which some of this we're going to go into this sidebar in a moment. So the first thing that I think is kind of fun here, let's see where I put it, is let's see what sort of code sections it can render. So this is called, if I remember correctly, the HTML content blocker. And what it does is it has 5 general categories. And when you click on one of these categories and then refresh the page, it will disable all the functions listed under there. So you can kind of see how a website changes depending on what functions are used. This is another great way to find out how a website's built. So for example, this will be a fun one. Let's disable the CS on here. We'll reload the page, and this is the New York Times without the CSS function. And it also counts how many times it was requested for that. Let's try another one here. Objects, this one should be funny. Let's see. Let's try to almost disable everything here. It should just go like complete. Yep, we just broke it. This is when you disable JavaScript, CSS, and objects. This is all you're left with the New York Times. And again, this is a great way where if you go to a website and you're like, I wonder if it's using JavaScript or how many objects it's calling or what CSS data it's using. This is a great quick way to figure out instantly what's using on what and see what a website looks during that, which can be very useful for that sort of reconning data. Another extension I've added in here is there's a design mode extension, which will allow you to directly manipulate the website. And now this looks like voodoo. We're not hacking the website directly here. All we're doing is we're manipulating the actual layout on our end for the website. So I just made a hack section right there. So that's a cool way where you can just edit data. You can create notes to yourself within the web page. Let's also just quickly look up the IP of this. So this is called IP address and domain information from DNSlytics. And you can look them up in some of the other search stuff that I showed, like Sputnik and stuff, but this is a great instant browser way just to see all the DNS and IP data right from the dashboard. So what other stuff we can do here? Well, let's say we wanted to actually look at the source, and let's say we wanted to just edit some random HTML code. Now, normally you would just open, let's just take this chunk here, your, a VS Codium or, God forbid, Notepad or something like that. Or you can install an HTML5 editor right into the browser and edit from here, and you can save it. You can also save CSS independently or JavaScript independently, and you can also have a preview that now I'm going to escape from because it's going to show nothing because of how complicated the New York Times is. In addition, which I'm going to attempt to show off, I've also added a Markdown editor. So if you come across a Markdown file, instead of opening up a separate Markdown editor, or if you have your own website editor for Markdown, but you want to see how it updates in real time, you can do it directly through the browser itself. So that's sort of a neat way to do stuff. And we have a couple more extensions left, and then I guess I'll open it up for questions here. I'm going to start getting to the really crazy, juicy stuff in a second. I just want to see if I opened it up to test the Markdown editor. A couple behind the scene things I actually want to go into. So I'm not going to get into the viewing the Markdown because I do have an extension that will allow you to view, that's with the two Markdown extensions, the Markdown editor and the Markdown viewer, that when you click on Markdown, instead of saving it as a file, it will load all the Markdown text data right into your browser. So you can copy from that and load the Markdown editor, paste in it, and that way you never have to leave your browser workspace. But something that's awesome behind the scenes that we can try out is I've also added in a JSON viewer. So again, instead of downloading the JSON file, we can just click on a JSON file right here. And if I did everything correctly, the JSON here, which is a small test, will load up in the browser instead of a separate file. So again, what we're trying to do is contain all of your editing for websites and reverse lookup and stuff in browsers, so you're not constantly switching back between programs. That way, if you're in Kali or Parrot OS or any other custom sort of Linux using for hacking, and you want to boot into something like, let's say, the Social Engineering Toolkit, that way it's now a big step to do. So everything's localized in here. Okay, I think we have like 5 more extensions left. That'll be really quick, but really cool to watch, and then I will take questions. Let's see here. Another way you can view website information is there's a fun little button that's called Hack This Form. And you're kind of like, what the heck does that do? It looks like a Fox or in Firefox. What this extension allows you to do is when you have a form, let's say a method to upload a file from your website or to submit or text and type data, like let's say from Google or such, when you have Hack This Form, you click on the extension and it will actually show the iPattern and refer data for the sort of form input area. So again, without having to open up the source code itself, we can see what sort of the inputs are going on within these fields and thus do recon data as well as manipulate data accordingly based on that information. All right, now we're going to come down to some really fun stuff here. So what if you're in browser and you realize, oh, they're using SSH in the background. I should probably load up terminal and my SSH connection, and it's going to take forever and such. An extension that I used, one for Plaid CTF and another actually, if I remember correctly, for the DEF CON qualifier, is we can actually load up SSH directly into the browser with this XSH extension. Essentially, it remote opens a CentOS virtualization system, and now you have your terminal gate for SSH, and you can proceed to do your local hosts and SSH or IP entry and terminal directly from your web browser. Again, we're trying to centralize everything here. Now we're going to kind of go into the forbidden area, and I won't go through every single one of these, but here's a quick useful tools here. If you're curious about how fast your website might be going, and I'm not going to initiate now, but the net speed test is a great extension to have. See the upload and download speeds given from your current connection on any given website. Not necessary, but I also put in this Onion browser button, which currently is activated, and I don't have a URL right now, but if we were able to go to a Onion site, it should load directly in the Firefox browser without us having to open up the proxy section and settings and configure all of that. For those who are doing social recon, particularly on Twitter, there's a great extension called Bot Sentinel. And when you go onto a piece of social media, I'm not going to go onto it right now, but Bot Sentinel, which for some reason does not want to load properly right now, but what it will normally do, because I'm not on a social media thing, let's, well, I'm not logged into anything right now, but I will explain what Bot Sentinel will do. It will find it will look through your current social media and point out from a known bot list which of the social media feeds, here we go, are bots. And you could also enter individual Twitter handles and social media accounts and find out if those are bots. And when you find a bot, it will list the data of the bot, such as where it's located from, where it was flagged, why it was flagged for, etc. The I'm Not a Human extension is kind of neat. I've only used it once, but what it essentially does is, instead of going through Chameleon and trying to futz around with your user agent, it will automatically reload the current website you're on and submit to your user agent that you're actually a bot from Google. And what I found in my experience on here, including on the Plaid CTF, is that websites are often given Google bots and crawlers more permissions than any of their users or admins do. So it's a great way to find out that if they do have those permissions, you might be able to find some interesting backends that they're using in order to exploit, thanks to their permissions to the Google bot services. We have an AWS agent in here if you want a key ID, Amazon Web Services. And then I think we have 3 more extensions left. I'm not going to go into HackerScope because unfortunately I didn't have enough time to set up the example, but HackerOne Scope is done by HackerOne, and it sort of, if I remember correctly, shows you when you go to a website and it's like let's say apple.com, HackerOne has a list of all the different bug bounties that they do and their value targets. When you're on such a website and you hit HackerScope, it will scan that website URL that you're on, find all the ones on HackerOne, and right in your browser bring up what exactly the bug bounties are and what users have found and what haven't they found yet that's still offered up for a reward. So that's a pretty neat service. You also have various enabled debugging modes. And I think the last one, second to last one here. It's actually not, this one. Again, I didn't have enough time, unfortunately, to set this up, but there is an awesome extension where when you can list your own blocking rules and header response and do some low-level man-in-the-middle attacks within the browser. Our last, where are you? Because I feel like everyone's like falling asleep right now, but our last extension that we're going to do, and I know it's a lot of extensions, but trust me, when you're kind of in the field, a lot of this stuff is useful. Our last one is not in here. I just remembered this. 2 very useful scripting tools here. You can use Network Moon to sort of look up what the current network analytics for the .coms are. Once you know that, I have 2 scripting rules to here. There's a in-browser script injector, and I also have, which I also have in the sidebar here because it just offers more functions, a alternate script injector where you can manipulate post data and headers directly in your browser. Let's see here. Again, I wish I had more setup time. That was a fault on my end, and of course the video is not playing now. But for what you can do in injectors, essentially insert your own JavaScript code and these sort of manipulations of turn this guy back on, of refer functions and such in order to do things like bypass website logins, which I've used on particularly the Plaid CTF and multiple website challenges. And finally, I know it's been a long thing, but finally, once you are done, there's the forget button. When you trigger this button, it will go through your browser cache, cookies, downloads, all your data, and it will forget everything that's here. So when you start a new CTF, or if you want to just go incognito after you've done your dirty work, it will erase all the data that's in there. And provided that you were doing things like going through Tor or VPN, you should be pretty good to go next time you have to load it up. And hopefully the service you're targeting, with permission I might add, will be none the wiser, and then you can do proper report. Speaking of which, if you have a Microsoft team and feedback report, Microsoft does have an extension where you can form your own team and share feedback right in the browser. So if you're a red teaming operation and you signed up for a Microsoft Teams service, you can use Microsoft Teams and communicate directly in browser without having to load up external applications and share all the data that you've been using with these tools, which also, in my opinion, works really good for CTF. I kind of wish there was a non-Microsoft version of that, but at least Microsoft provides this service. So that's pretty much everything in this browser I was going to show. I will be posting on our media and on our blog, which you can find on our website, defcon21.org, our social media here on Twitter, which is our main piece of social media, is defcon201 and J. And U-Matrix blocked that. That's how good U-Matrix is. And we'll be posting a link that if you go into the About profiles, this will have a list of your profiles. You can create a new profile, name it, in this case I have it Offensive, and then you launch the profile in a new browser window, and that will allow you to keep your current Firefox configuration and open up the new window, and that file, if you open the root folder on it, you will copy and paste from the file. I'm going to post everything from in here to there, and you can merge and skip everything. It's a direct copy. And when you launch into a new window, everything will be up here pre-configured as is, so you're good to go. So I guess, let's see, it's 9:40, so I actually did 40 minutes. I thought I wouldn't have enough time, but it turns out I had way too much time. I'm not in the chat right now, so if anyone has any questions, I'm sorry if this seemed really extension heavy and you wanted to see some like super elite coding stuff, but I'm shocked of how well just these low-level GUI implementations allows you to get so much feedback in order to load up more powerful tools in the terminal and just wreak havoc on things.
Oh, dude, that was incredible. Like, yeah, I don't care if you talk for 40 minutes. Like we said, 20-minute lightning talks and blah, blah, blah. But we've had such good talks. I'm pretty sure I'm okay with it. And I'm pretty sure all the watchers too. Dash wanted to know if you're going to have a whole list of the plugins available.
Yes. In addition to sorry, my brain's blanking out. In addition to the folder, the zip folder I'm going to make, a zip and tar that will, once again, when you unzip it or tarball it, you copy and paste directly into the root folder of the new profile you make, and it will launch pre-everything. I will do a write-up. I'm really busy this weekend, but in the near future, probably sometime next week between Monday and Wednesday, I'll do a write-up on our blog, which will go over this in detail. So if you only want to load up one extension or another, I will detail exactly what that extension does or what that about config does, and link into the description where you can install it.
Cool. Awesome. Looking for any other questions in the chat. But if not, especially if you're in the Jersey, like Central Jersey, New York area around us, like DEFCON 201 has been really supportive of DEFCON 610, and I hope we've been done the same for them. Pocket does a great job with that group. Link for blog. Somebody asked if you got a link for.
We try. We're a social group for antisocial people, so it's a little difficult.
Introverts unite in your own houses by yourself.
Yes. I will mention that shortly after this, starting at 6 p.m., we've been, so we were really inspired by the way you've been streaming on your channel. In fact, I want to contact you about Twitch streaming because we sort of have an idea about that later this year. But we've been not only live streaming our meetings, but doing since we have these live streams like on Twitch, DLive, YouTube, etc., even on tour, we've been doing all these shows, and we're not just only doing them for our own amusement, but all this month we've been raising money for Fred Hutch, which is normally a cancer research institute. But what they've been doing is they've been just going all in on COVID-19 research using their high-end grade facilities. And when you go to our Twitch, if you scroll down, you can donate to Fred Hutch there. We also have an independent link currently right now on our Twitter and our website where you can donate directly at 6 p.m. because there's so much hacker stuff going on. It's literally 3 more days until our charity stream, our charity ends. We're already at $140. We're trying to make it to 200. So starting at 6, I'll be on watching the IoT Village talks and doing and all of us will be doing commentary while watching it. And then tomorrow we're going to spend all day watching Pros versus Joes and adding our own commentary and drinking and such. And then in between, when you guys are where we're watching the teams, I love how the names masked up, not sure, COVID 9,000. It's because it's over 9. It should have said 9,001, just so it could be over 9,000. You need to work better. But good job, guys. we're going to watch Pro versus Joe's all day, and every time you have downtime when you're looking at the teams, we're going to be in a CTF, so you'll be able to watch us work on the CTF. So if you want to see this browser in action,
Nice.
you'll be able to see that tomorrow.
Nice, yeah, and tomorrow, so we're gonna do the hot wash for this today, and tomorrow is gonna be a lot more game heavy. We're gonna be talking to a lot of the blue team captains, maybe some of the red team, some of the people from our Gigamon Thread Insight team. So yeah, it's gonna be a lot more game heavy tomorrow. So
I wish I could have got in. I applied, and then stuff happened, and
it's all good, man.
I did it. Yeah, I wasn't able to make it. If someone drops out, I'll gladly hop in. But I've always told people that out of all the Hacker Summer Camp stuff, because a lot of people really focus on DEF CON and Black Hat, I love B-Sides Las Vegas. I know a ton of people that work there, and we always highlight the Pros versus Joe's CTF tournament when we do our DEF CON with our Hacker Summer Camp guides. I've always wanted to go. If I can't get in this time, when I go out to the desert next year, I am going to literally like put myself in a cannon and fling myself into that.
Hell yeah, man.
Again, I'm new at doing CTF, but I've been learning so much doing it, especially shout out to Fail Overflow of how to learn while playing CTF. And I'm learning just like you guys, and that's how I'm figuring out how to make tool platforms like this.
Hell yeah, man. Well done. Thank you for coming on SidePocket of DEF CON 201.
Real quick, for 2 seconds, I forgot 2 more things in here, and they'll be like, it'll take a second to show, if you don't mind.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, and under Inspect Element, I have 3 more extensions. I know it's a lot of extensions, but these are actually only appear in the Inspect Element. This is where you can look at individual parts of a website here. As you can see, as I highlight, it does that sort of thing where it highlights what you're looking at. It associates the visual what code. I have a direct PHP extension, and I need to drag this command over. Here we go. There is a open version of not only Hackbar, but someone also has taken the Hackbar and made Max Hackbar, and that allows you to do various hacks directly through the inspection, such as SQL injection, WAIF, SSS, LFI, various bypasser techniques, and the normal Hackbar has its own with XXE and encryption encoding. So I'm sorry, I forgot about that earlier, but that's the entire thing.
Awesome. All right, man. We'll look forward to a whole list of those. Again, DEF CON 201 at DEF CON 201 NJ. Pocket, man. Thanks, brother. Talk to you later.
Jersey represent.
Dirty Jersey.
The Pros vs. Joe's Stay-at-Home CTF is brought to you in part by Red Lion. Red Lion offers information security and compliance professional services that you can depend on to build systems, enable sales, and advance your corporate posture. With MRR and MSP pricing, Red Lion is a trusted source for compliance and security. For more information, visit redlion.io.